Rob here. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to play The King of Frontier. This is a Japanese title that was designed by Shun. It is published by Studio GG, plays 2 to 4 players in about 30 minutes, and is for players ages 10 and up. This game is no longer in print as of the making of this video in late 2025. Hopefully there will be a reprint of this. The game was re-implemented by a game called Skylands, and that was published by Queen Games, and it was an English title, but it doesn't get as promising reviews as this game does. So hopefully they will figure out a way to get this one reprinted someday. With all the reprints that are out there, hopefully something like this will be reprinted, and hopefully these rules that we'll be looking at will make it easier for you to play. During this rules teach, I'll be referring to this mat here, which is the player board. It's a 5x4 grid. I've put some tiles out here, and I'm going to use this as examples while I'm teaching. You can follow along with me if you're able to read this as we go through the rules teach and see the summaries of things like the actions that can be taken, the setup, the end game, and calculating the score. We'll be referring to this as we go through the teach. There are resources on Board Game Geek that will allow you to pull up English versions of the rules, player mats, a description of the different building tiles. So look on Board Game Geek and you can pull that stuff up under the files section for this game. Additionally, as you're watching along, if you see any mistakes I've made, please go ahead and put those in the comments. Go ahead and check the comments to see if there are any corrections in there. And also on Board Game Geek, in the rules forum for this game, there are some questions and answers there that you can refer to. Let's talk about the components. You have these development tiles. They have this back to them. They are going to be drawn during the game and placed onto players' boards. They are going to contain parts of wheat fields, forests, quarries, and cities, and you're going to want to place them in such a way that they are completed on the board, sort of like Carcassonne would be, so that they can produce when you do the production action, and we'll talk about that as we go. When you do a production action, you're going to get these resources. These cubes represent the different places they'll be coming from: green forest, gray quarry, yellow wheat. You'll be using those resources to buy the buildings. The last component are these victory point tiles. These are going to be gained during the game, mostly through the consumption action, and we'll show you how that works. They are a finite pool that is placed out at the beginning of the game, depending on the player count. And when they are gone, that is one of the ways the end game is triggered. Let's talk about the end game trigger. One of them is when the last victory point token is taken. At the end of that player's turn, the game will end. If the last development tile is taken, at the end of that turn, the game will end. Or if someone fills up their entire board, the game will end at the end of that turn. Now let's talk about gameplay. At the start of the game, every player is going to draw 5 of these development tiles. They'll look at them, choose 3, and place those on their board. The remaining 2 will be discarded face down next to the player's board. During the game, whenever you discard tiles, you'll place them next to your board face down in the same way. And at any time during the game, a player may look at their own face down discard tiles. Then you pick a start player. The first player is going to pick one of the 4 actions in the game, and they're going to perform it. Other players will get to do the same action, but the lead player will get a bonus when they do that action. Once the lead player's turn is over, play passes to the left, and the next player will be the lead player. I'll point out here that that is the tiebreaker at the end of the game. If there is a tie, the tie is broken by who would be the next lead player if there was going to be another turn. Now let's talk about the 4 actions that players can choose from. First is development. With the development action, the lead player can draw 2 development tiles from the deck and then may place 0, 1, or 2 of the new tiles onto their board. Any tiles they choose not to place will be put in the face-down discard pile. Other players can draw 1 development tile from the deck and then may either place it on their board or discard it to their discard pile. Players always draw tiles in clockwise order. If there are not enough tiles, a player cannot draw one, and when the deck is empty, the game will end at the end of that turn. Tiles may be placed anywhere on a player's board as long as all of its sides match any adjacent tiles. Sort of like Carcassonne. You've got to make sure that the grassland touches grassland, forest touches forest, so you couldn't take it and place it like this. That wouldn't work, okay? So you've seen that before in tile laying games. Same here. They don't have to be adjacent to each other when you place them. So you could place a tile over here if you wanted to. It's not touching anything at this point. Whenever a development tile is placed, and you'll see the same goes for buildings, it can be placed in any orientation. Any areas that are adjacent to the edge of the board are not considered enclosed. So this city space is not complete. Neither is this one. This forest, same. An area is considered complete when it's enclosed, just like these are on the board right now. Next, let's talk about construction. We'll skip over production for a second. The construction action is sort of like the development action, except here you're going to be buying buildings using any resources you've collected. When this is chosen, each player may pick 1 building from the supply to build. The lead player will pay 1 less cube than is required by the tile. So for instance, here they could spend 1 less quarry or 1 less forest to buy this tile. The cost is shown on the building. Also, it is not legal to buy and then discard a building. It has to be placed if you're going to buy it. Again, keep in mind they can be placed in any orientation. See how this one is upside down? No worries. Buildings may provide an ongoing benefit during the game, and they can also score you victory points if their conditions are met. Some have conditions, others don't. This building, for instance, is going to score you 1 point no matter what, so it doesn't have a condition for scoring. But here on the board, you'll see this, for instance, is a scarecrow. This just requires that it is part of a completed wheat field. So if it was over here, it wouldn't score, but at the end of the game, if it was here, it would score. This is the same, but for the quarry. This is a monastery. You see this question mark here because its scoring is going to depend on end game condition. Here, this is any adjacent tile, whether it be orthogonal or diagonal, will score 1 point each. So here you have 1, 2, 3. If they were all filled around it, you would score 8 points. This is a guild hall. This is going to score based on the number of empty spaces in this city. And as I said, some tiles will give you an ongoing benefit during the game. For instance, this here is the large market. If it is within a completed city during the game, and again, it would have to be, let's say where this tile was, this could be here, it would be in a completed city. Anytime you do the consumption action, which you're going to talk about in a second, you will score extra victory points while that is in a completed city during the game. Additionally, it will get you 3 victory points at the end of the game. Next, we'll talk about production, and then we'll finish up with consumption. During the production action, the lead player will look at up to 2 spaces that are complete with regard to wheat or forest or quarry, not city spaces. This is called your territory. These are cities. In the production phase, you're going to look to forests, wheat fields, and quarry, and you will fill up one of those spaces with the appropriate cubes. The lead player can do 2 of those. So if I were the lead player, I could fill this one up, and then I could fill, let's say, this one up, or instead I could choose to put another wheat field. If when I did production, I had one space empty, I would just fill up the other space. So to be more efficient, you'd like to have 2 empty ones when you were the lead player during the production phase. All the other players can just place one set of cubes on a completed area. Those will be used in the case of things like forest and quarry to buy buildings. And in the case of wheat, they'll be used for the consumption action, which we'll talk about next. As a reminder, cities do not produce resources, they only consume them. So that never produces. If an area is not complete, it does not produce. And once a resource is produced, it cannot be moved or removed except by construction, which will be when you're building a building and you spend the resource, or if there's a special tile that lets you move something around, which would come from a building. The last action a player can do is consumption. Each player may select one completed city and then turn all of their wheat in up to that city's capacity into victory points. The only difference here for a lead player is if the lead player gets any victory points at all from this action, they'll get 1 total extra victory point. So on our board here, we have this city, which the consumption spaces are 3. It's completed, so it counts. We also have 1, 2, 3, 4 wheat cubes. So if I were the lead player, I can take 2 of these and 1 from here, put them here, 1, 2, 3. That gets me 1, 2, 3 victory points. And then these would be removed back to the supply. Then, because I was the lead player, I get 1 extra victory point. Everybody else gets to do the same thing, but they just don't get the 1 extra victory point. Players earn victory points in clockwise turn order, starting with the lead player, and you can't score victory points if this is empty. Again, remember, if those are ever empty at the end of that turn, the game will end. As I mentioned before, some buildings have ongoing effects if they're within a completed city during the game. So let's say I had built this at some point and instead had this here. What this is telling me is this is the large market, and this is the translation into English is going to be that whenever this city would do the consumption action, so in our case, there are 3 spaces there, instead of getting 1 victory point for each of those spaces, this city would score 2. Also, if the lead player was the one who had this, their 1 victory point would be doubled, their bonus victory point. So that shows you. And also, just to point out, at the end of the game, this would give you 3 victory points if it were inside a completed city. So that's the consumption action. So there you have the 4 actions that are available, and on each turn, a player may do one of those actions. Now let's talk about calculating the score at the end of the game. Again, the game is going to end when either all the development tiles are gone, if all the victory points are gone, or if one player completes their board. Any player who has filled up all the spaces on their board gets 10 victory points. For any spaces in a territory that are not filled in, you lose 2 points per space. So here I'd have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Minus 18 points, that would be terrible. You get 1 victory point per space in completed areas of either cities, quarries, forests, wheat fields. It doesn't matter if they have cubes on them or not. So here I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The uncompleted ones don't score at all. Keep in mind, some buildings might give you a bonus. This one does. In that regard, any buildings that do have scoring either in the corners of them, in completed areas, or if you have something with a question mark that is fulfilled, you go ahead and calculate those scores. I'll show you those in a second. And then any victory point tokens you've collected count to your score. As I mentioned earlier, this building will score only because it has this one victory point in the corner and it is in a completed wheat field. Same here with the quarry. This particular building scores you one victory point because it is in a completed area that has a quarry. Same here with the castle. It gives you 2 points if it is in a completed city space. Then let's look at these couple of question mark ones. Here you have the guild hall. And just to clarify, the designer, Shun, has mentioned on Board Game Geek that the way this would be scored would be you'd get the 1 for each of these spaces that you get for regularly calculating the score. But because the guild hall was in this completed city, you'd get an additional 2 for each empty space. So 2, 4, 6 more for a total of 9 in that city. And throughout the video, I've mentioned completed areas. Grassland areas like this, even though there's no tiles completely surrounding this, because this icon is within a grassland, this is a completed building that does score. This is the monastery. As I mentioned, it would give you 1 point for each adjacent tile at game's end, including diagonals. And like I said, on Board Game Geek and on the internet, you can find these types of things that will give you all of the details about the buildings. And I guess that's it. That's an overview of the rules of the King of Frontier. Hopefully that gives you some idea how the game plays. Again, if I've made any mistakes, please let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Like this video, subscribe to the channel.